You are welcome to another episode of LFN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. It's quite weird the way Dame Dash has managed to capitalize on the fact that he and Aaliyah did have a relationship to remain relevant in the industry, even though he completely lost it the day he decided to part ways with Jay-Z only because the famous rapper decided to produce a joint album with R. Kelly. While he wants the world to believe that his split with Jay-Z was largely in his protection of Aaliyah's legacy, the real truth is he couldn't stomach the fact that R. Kelly, who he hated so much, was going to work with his Rockefeller business partner, and this was largely to protect his own ego and not the interest of Aaliyah, as he puts it. Dame Dash is so fond of saying "I did this for Aaliyah, I did that for Aaliyah," but the reality is he is not even sure he and Aaliyah were going to remain an item for the next years. While Dame Dash has been going around mudslinging R. Kelly and big-mouthing him like he owes him money, the same Rockefeller co-founder's claims don't hold any water, considering, like everyone else, there is no record of him stepping up for her to address any of his allegations against Mr. Kelly. His main excuse being that Aaliyah told him to let the past heal, and that for this reason he chose to remain quiet. Interestingly though, the media has succeeded in portraying him as the lead fighter for Aaliyah's justice.
I think it's time for us to address the elephant in the room.
If Dame Dash was who he says he is, and it's true that he really heard the things he claims his ex-girlfriend the late Aaliyah mentioned to him, he never would have chosen to remain quiet. Critics suggest that Dame Dash dated Aaliyah for relevance, and relevance he got back then. It therefore didn't matter to him what had happened between his fiancée and R. Kelly, for he had gotten the fame he wanted, and besides, R. Kelly's involvement was not as he now wishes to portray it. If it wasn't worthy his intervention then, why would it suddenly be as important now that R. Kelly is under attack by even bigger forces than Dame Dash would have been? So after he lost his knight in shining armor Aaliyah, he now seeks to find meaning and keep his presence announced by mudslinging R. Kelly and blaming his financial situation on Jay-Z's decision to cooperate with the R&B King. And when it comes to his role in Aaliyah's life, all he can say is, "I chose to keep my promise to her. I told her not to take the plane. I could have saved her life had I insisted on my instincts." Sadly, none of these the late Aaliyah can prove after her demise. While we would be willing to forgive him for being nothing more than Aaliyah's admirer, we cannot allow Dame Dash to move around spreading hurtful propaganda about R. Kelly now that speaking of him could generate millions of views for his content and make him feel relevant in the industry. He is free to speak of his love affairs with Aaliyah, but he ought to keep R. Kelly's name out of his mouth, Dame Dash. And this is the real problem currently. Like we mentioned in one of our past video releases, many people have found featuring the name R. Kelly in their cheap talk at interviews and elsewhere a catch for the audience to listen in. This is why we now see many artists crossing over to praising him for being a good man, yet they didn't do this when it mattered the most.
R. Kelly is the king of R&B.
Dame Dash is, however, taking the search for relevance to another level, but he ought to be warned. Speaking ill of R. Kelly is not making him sound good at all.
So what you think I felt all these years?
I was just shocked at how long he got away with it. And how many people turned and looked the other way. How many people were still, involved with him in any kind of way, knowing all those things.
Whoever said people's actions speak a lot louder than words was no fool. It's in fact disturbing to see someone come up decades later to claim he had plenty of information about R. Kelly and Aaliyah, yet saw no reason to speak on it back then when it would have mattered the most. Because actions do speak louder than words, what this tells us is there was in fact nothing important enough for Dame Dash to speak on. And this is the very same thing that happened with the accusers, who have completely nothing to show as an attempt to prove their allegations, like police reports or medical records. Yet they remain bold enough to appear in the media years later and say R. Kelly did this to me, R. Kelly did that to me. When they were in relationship with him and things were going well, they had no complaints, but later on, after and because he dumped them, they now make all kinds of allegations with hope to be compensated in restitutions. Returning to Dame's situation. If he says he remained quiet then because of his love for Aaliyah, why can't he continue to keep the trust and remain silent forever? After all, the man he dislikes so much is already in jail. His continued involvement simply shows how much he loves to announce his presence, and no one would trust such a character to speak the truth at all times. At this point in time, considering he lost everything he lived for when Aaliyah passed on and Jay-Z dropped him for sticking in the past, Dame Dash will hold on to anything that comes his way as an opportunity to keep his presence loudly announced. And this explains why he has suddenly become an self-appointed expert on matters to do with R. Kelly's case, seeking to convince the world that he knew so much yet remained quiet for decades. According to Benjamin, Dame Dash is not in the right position to be discussing R. Kelly considering he is already conflicted by his desires for Aaliyah. He would now say anything to ruin R. Kelly even though for the past decades he saw no reason to do this only because the opportunity to hamper him had not yet presented itself. Listening to his talk about the R&B king is comparable to asking a Russian from back in the 1960s to comment about the United States. It must be hard for his current partner to deal with his repeated references to his past relationship he probably will never get over. Adding the name R. Kelly into his mix however undermines the great relationship he says he had with the R&B singer. Many people are discussing R. Kelly now just to gain the popularity they never had, and Dame Dash is no exception. According to Wright, what I know for sure is that R. Kelly doesn't give a hoot about the people big-mouthing him. The main thing he is currently focused on is regaining his freedom. There is no doubt R. Kelly took good care of his girlfriends before he ran bankrupt, and they all turned against him negotiating his wrongful conviction. R. Kelly's only mistake was mixing up with females who had nothing to offer, having come out of the hood with many criminal backgrounds, all because he had a big heart. Now look how they all repaid him. In any case, we know that these women were used by higher-ups who hold the power as a weapon against R. Kelly. But thankfully karma is now working on them one by one. According to Tone Cobb, it's hilarious how people are trying to use R. Kelly's name as a platform to get famous lately. He has already been dragged in the mud enough and injustice done to him. Everyone involved in this huge conspiracy should be ashamed of themselves. Imagine he has now been in jail for 5 whole years over mere hearsay and a bunch of lies with no evidence to back them up. Believe me or not, this has all been about money and material gains. If you wish to take part in a live interview discussing any of these topics, let us know by sending an email to sashalfnmedia@gmail.com for scheduling. Thank you for watching today's video, a production of LFN Media, giving you another perspective of issues at hand. We make it our business to keep you updated with the truth amidst the cloud of lies the media wants you to believe. It is therefore important to subscribe to this channel, hit the bell icon and allow all notifications so that you don't miss out whenever we publish a new video.